tākere hai a te āhuarangi. E mōhio ana tātou he paru nui I puta mai ki Aotearoa I ngā ahumahi, I ngā pāmu, I te tini me te mano e haere ana marunga waka. Ka wera te ao, e tere rawa tēnei āhuatanga. Tēnā koutou katoa, pohine kātōku ingoa. He kai arihi au ki rungi I tēnei ara hikoi kia mārama te take ara te tākere haia āhuarangi. Me haere tātou ki te taihoro nukurangi ki te kōrero ki etihi o ngā kaimahi.
I'm Dr. James Renwick. I work as a climate scientist at NIWA in Wellington, and I'm the science leader for climate variability and change research, which means I lead our main climate research program here at NIWA.
Ko tāku te James Renwick, he mema o te rōpū rangatira kaiputai ao, te IPCC. Ara, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Ka hui ai te IPCC, he rōpū aru tūriki I te āhuarangi, o tēnā pito o te ao, o tēnā pito o te ao. Huri no, ka wānangi hia kia mōhio heaha te āhuarangi, ara ka pēhia te ao o muri nei.
The latest IPCC report, this Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, came out last year. The eastern North Island especially was identified as a hotspot for coastal inundation and coastal erosion. The oceans are warming like the rest of the climate system, and that warming's been measured right down pretty much to the bottom of the ocean, down to at least 3,000 metres anyway, and the average depth of the ocean's about 4,000 metres. So the ocean's warming right down to its depths, and like most things, water expands as it warms up, so the depth of the ocean is increasing from that just thermal expansion, but also because glaciers and things, ice sheets on land are melting, and that water's flowing into the ocean, of course. So the ocean sea levels are rising about 3 millimetres per year at the moment, which again, it doesn't sound like much, but over 10 years that's 3 centimetres, over a century it's 30 or 40, and that rate is increasing, so we're looking at more like maybe half a metre of sea level rise through this century, which when you think about it, again, it doesn't sound like much, but beaches are pretty flat things, and you raise the sea level half a metre, that'll push the tide line inland quite a long way.
I had to run away, so you could stay where I lay behind. Distance provides a shield to your weapons, and psychological abuse.
The whole area is a huge significance to us, and to see the deterioration that's happened over the years, it's quite a sad thing. The amount of sea that's come up over the years, actually just recent years, even Te Onero Atohe, the amount of coastline that's been pushed back. There used to be all sand dunes all along the whole beach, now it's just a huge bank. And one storm, I think it was last year, when we had a huge swell, we had gale force northwest winds, and it just pushed everything back over the road onto the houses. From that storm on, it's left Te Onero Atohe a completely different place. Our tuatua beds have receded, they've gone away, they're quite hard to find at the moment. Tohero have actually disappeared. It's affected them over in Teneke there, whereas people are all trying to sell their houses on the beachfront there, and there's that much backup over the sewage systems and whatnot now that it's affecting the other side there over in Teneke. With the last few storms that we've had in the last couple of years, the big retaining walls have actually been moved and pushed out onto the main road itself, and the tide's actually gone gone across onto the lawns of other houses. I think it's just the rise of the seas now, and the global warming that's occurred over the years too. Now it's starting to kick us in the butt now.
Keeps on raining, levee's gonna break. If it keeps on raining, levee's going to break. When the levee breaks, have no place to stay. Meet old levee, taught me to weep and mourn. Meet old levee, taught me to weep and mourn. It's got what it takes to make a mountain man keep his home.
Controversial paper released this week claims to bring new understanding to just how much damage we've done and says it may be worse than previously believed, predicting much faster polar melting and thus potentially catastrophic sea level rises, much faster than we ever believed possible, as much as 10 feet within just 50 years. The paper's lead author is a name you may know. The Washington Post calls him the world's most famous climate scientist. James Hansen is the former director of the NASA Goddard Institute for Space Studies. He is the man whom many credit with bringing global warming to the world's attention in the 1980s through some striking congressional testimony. He's now an adjunct professor at Columbia University's Earth Institute. You say that there will be a 10-feet rise in 50 years. What does that mean? It feels like a long way off, its numbers. What would that mean?
Not only would it be 10 feet, but it would imply that in the next decades after that, it would be even more. Because where this water is coming from is the West Antarctic ice sheet, and then there's another part of the East Antarctic ice sheet, which also has several meters of sea level rise in its ice. So what that would mean is coastal cities would become dysfunctional. Parts of the city would still be above water, but it wouldn't make sense to try to rebuild them partially because they know the water's going to keep rising. So we can't let it go unstable. We would lose all the coastal cities in the world, and that's enormous costs, which would affect everybody, whether they're living on the coast or not.
And most of the world lives around coastlines.
That's right.
If it keeps on raining, levee's gonna break. If it keeps
The science is clear. We have burned only a small fraction, the purple part, of the conventional oil, gas, and coal. So we have already got climate change underway based on just this fraction of the fossil fuels that we've burned. And we have only realized about half of the warming due to the gases that are already in the atmosphere because of the tremendous inertia of the climate system. The ocean is 2.5 miles deep. It takes it a long time to warm up in response to the changes in atmospheric composition. And so as a result, it's still warming up. There's more energy coming in than there is going out from the planet. And so we know that there's about as much warming in the pipeline. And already we can see things happening based on the 0.8 of a degree Celsius, 1.5 degree Fahrenheit warming that has occurred.
This is the challenge. Sitting here today, is it the biggest risk today? No, it's not. Is it the biggest risk in the future? One of the biggest risks in the future? Yes. And so the challenge is how, and the challenge is that if there's not action today or in the near future, that risk in the medium term goes up and up and up. And it requires sharper action, more abrupt action, and a bigger hit to the economy and obviously to financial stability.
There's been discussion about stranded assets, that particularly energy companies will never be able to use all the resources, fossil fuel resources that could be in the ground because of controls on carbon emissions. Do you agree that energy companies need to be reassessed in light of the stranded assets debate?
Well, I think I put it this way, and just to put some figures on this, depending on your carbon budget, which is an estimation, but a scientific estimation, so we just take those as given. Really only about 1/5 or 1/3 of all the oil and gas and coal reserves that are proven today could be burned and still be consistent with a so-called 2-degree world, a world with manageable climate change. What's important is not what I think. What's important is that investors, banks, insurance companies, the general population, has the information they need in order to invest accordingly, to take a view on this question.
You have given a lecture this week in which you say that the commitments for greenhouse gas reductions made for Paris will not add up to what is needed. So every country seems to have a bunch of reasons as to why they can't do more. It's too costly, it's unfair, we're doing our bit.
As our former head of Treasury once said, it's the argument, not me, not now, not this way. So we have to get past that. Look, the commitments that countries collectively are making in the run-up to Paris are not enough. They're not enough to stop that tip-over point at global warming going above 2 degrees above the pre-industrial levels. The EU is calling for more action, the UN's calling for more action. We need Paris to be a success. Whether things will add up to enough by Paris is obviously a moot point. If they don't, we just have to keep at it till it does add up.
So that means, doesn't it, that developed countries like New Zealand need to do more, need to do better?
Everyone needs to do more, and there is a special responsibility on developed countries who historically have contributed to the stock of carbon in the atmosphere. But we need every economy to act.